I'm Charlie, also known as Street Angel Cosplay, and this is working with Plus Size Cosplay. So thank you all for coming. I'm assuming you have vested interest in the subject matter. I've been a cosplayer for 15 years, and for a large portion of that, I have been what many people would classify as plus size. I've also represented the UK internationally at the Far Cosplay Cup in 2018, and I run the anime convention HotaruCon in Milton Keynes in November. But what is plus size? I'm going to do you the favour of not defining it. Because the reality here is that whether or not we're using terms like mid-size or plus size or fat or chubby or curvy, it really doesn't matter. Because all of those things are highly subjective depending on what art you are in. Whether it's cosplay, whether it's gymnastics. Don't do gymnastics. Says the girl who does gymnastics. Anyway, but the point is that there's a difference between identifying something for yourself and identifying something as an observer. So if you wish to self-identify as something, that is entirely up to you, and that is 100% okay if that's how you want to put yourself across to people. But as observers, whether or not you're putting together a cosplay group or you're a photographer, don't label people in this way. Okay, I know it's really easy, I know we're trained to do it, but just don't ever. It is a waste of everyone's time and everyone's money. Next. Picking your cosplay. Now, this is a bit of a minefield, I'm sure we can all agree. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard the phrases like, cosplay is for everyone, and cosplay what you want. And you've all smiled at the well-meaning friend that has said that to you, and in your head you're going, yes, but it's nice for you, you don't have to care. No one's going to criticise what you cosplay. Oh dear. I had this conversation recently where I sat opposite a friend who was saying to me, oh, when there's just some cosplays that you just don't feel like you have the body to carry off. And I was like, yeah, that's me in every cosplay. And they were like, what? And the whole table just stopped and nobody knew what to say to me. And that's part of the problem, because we're not used to talking about it, right? We are expected to almost smother the fact that we exist and say, I'm really sorry for taking up space, Your Honour. But you're entitled to take up that space. You have every right to cosplay whatever you want, and however you want to achieve that. Do not hold the cosplays you want to do to ransom for your body's sake. Now, I'm sure we've all done it. We put on cosplay because we're not gonna do it justice. We're not gonna be pretty enough. We're not gonna be this right enough. We're not gonna have the right body for it. Stop waiting. Now, it's entirely fair that you might be on a journey with your body towards whatever it is that you want to be. For me, I spent years telling myself, I'll do that when I'm skinny. I'll do that when I'm thinner. We'll circle back to that thought later. But the point is that do it now. Stop waiting. Stop waiting for somebody to give you permission to say that you're going to be pretty enough, that you're going to be justified. If you need someone to say it to you, I'm saying it to you right now. And I'm in charge, I have the microphone, I'm important. So when you're sitting there at home and you're going, oh, I really wanted to cosplay that thing, but here's a bullshit reason why not. Imagine me in the back of your brain. Go and do the thing, okay? Or else I'm going to hit you with a stick. Reasoning your cosplay. This slide might hit close to home for somebody other than me, but it is mainly about me. Reasons not to pick your cosplay. Gap filling for somebody else's dream group, because heaven forbid you pick the character you actually want to do. I didn't mind doing it too, for a friend honest, this isn't bashing my friends. Making all of the costumes in the group so that you feel justified in being there, because at least if you're useful, people will like you. No. Get some self-respect. Note to earlier me. Cosplaying obscure things so that people are less likely to criticize you because they don't know what the fuck you're doing. Cosplaying things that are not current fashion stampede and going, yeah, but look at the other fashion. No, thank you. Do the fashion stampede. I don't actually want to do fashion, but some of you might. Or, this is a fun one, hypersexualizing yourself. Doing the titty cosplay because you have the tartar. I mean, if you like the cosplay and you would like to use the tartar, go right ahead. Go forth, be free. But cover the nipples because of UK law. But this is something I also see quite a lot. People do hypersexualize themselves because they're like, if you're looking at the tartar, you're not looking anywhere else. You don't have to punish yourself, other people will do it for you. So I know that we're serialized and we're socialized to put these beliefs into our own head. But you can learn to strip that all back. Cosplay what you want to. And I mean it when I say that. Because I have the same concerns you do. I hope I have evidence of this. I will cite my sources later. Buying or making your cosplay. We do not have time in the next hour to go through the maelstrom that is this disaster zone. But I am going to make the point that we exist in a world where neither of these things are fair, because the bought market is probably not going to cater to you. Because the reality is you should be buying clothes to the biggest measurement of yourself, whether that's your shoulders, your bust, whatever it is, that's what you should be buying to and then tailoring it. We don't get the luxury of the choice. And so we're left with this option of making things, but that is an investment of skill, an investment of time, an investment of cost. Sewing machines are expensive. And that's not necessarily accessible. And this makes cosplay hard. Unfortunately, I don't have the magic wand to cure this problem, but it is important that we acknowledge that that is a reality. And we're allowed to talk about the fact that that makes it harder for us to participate in this hobby that we love. Because again, we are allowed to enter the conversation, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. You have that right. And even this bought costume that I bought under duress, I had to edit. This chest did not fit in that costume. I had to gut the whole thing and replace it entirely. That was a fun afternoon. But then we get on to the fitting of your costume. A costume that fits you, regardless of your size, will automatically look better than a costume that doesn't. And that may seem like common sense. People might be like, well, surely that's obvious. But it isn't necessarily obvious if you're used to wearing costumes that don't. So especially if you are constrained to what you can buy, or even what you commission. Because I have been a cosplay commissioner. I have seen people that will enter that sphere, and they don't know how to tailor. I love them. I love that they're working on their little industry. But they just throw fabric in a mannequin and expect it to work. And mannequins are not sized like us. So if you're used to wearing things that don't fit you, you're used to compromising in that way, and wearing something that fits you is really, really important. So I made this school uniform. Okay, it fits me to a T, and it's beautiful and I love it. I'm wearing it tomorrow. I did not make this bodysuit from Amazon, which is holding on with a will and a prayer. A prayer that failed at one of the cats who come parties, but we don't talk about that. But the point is that it was kind of gaping in all of the wrong places, and you're like, yeah, you stretch fabric at the same bit. No, sorry. But how do you learn to fit a costume? Especially when you want to buy something like a Genshin costume and expecting to tailor that. The more complex the costumes get, the harder it is to tailor. But this is really important, and I will explain to you why. Jennifer Aniston. You might be thinking, flaming fingers Jennifer Aniston have to do with it? Well, that is because a friend of mine who works in the celebrity dressing industry explained to me why Jennifer Aniston will always look better in a jeans and t-shirt than you would if you had the same body in the same t-shirt. That is because, as I said earlier, about buying something to the largest part of you, whatever that measurement is, wherever that measurement is, that is what they have done. Right? She might be a size, 8.5, I don't know. But she'll buy a size 12 if she needs it for whatever, and the rest will be tailored in. And this is really important when we're looking at cosplay. But again, it's having that opportunity to buy something that's bigger. And that isn't necessarily always accessible. Practicing your cosplay. Now, again, this might sound like common sense, but I put out a video on cock crunching on TikTok yesterday and it's still going up in views. You've all done it, you all know what I'm talking about. Stop it. Get some sleep. I'm looking at you, Danky and Daisies. You look guilty to me. But seriously, these are two pictures of me from a long shoot that I did at CosXpo where I did not prepare at all, and two photos of me from an aerial photo shoot where I prepared a lot. Now I turned up to that aerial shoot, it was an hour long. I was sharing that hour with somebody else. I had 3 costume changes, and I had practiced every single pose. I'd rented a studio, I'd set up my camera in lots of different angles, filmed me doing the pose, screenshotted it, turned up with a slideshow presentation from a photographer saying, this is what I want. Recreate. Comparatively, I turned up to the long thing and went, well, I'm here, and I'm beautiful. But the point is that the photographer could only give me so much, and I could only give so much. And I didn't know what my face was doing, and I didn't know what my body was doing, and I didn't know what my costume was doing, and I didn't know what the lighting was going to look like. And these are all things that you can practice. I appreciate the crawling efforts there. Thank you. For the preservation of my video, you are very much thanked. Love it. For those watching this later, Amanda's just crawled underneath the video. He'll have to crawl back, surely. Or just yeet out the fire and say, it's not a fire, it's just, preservation. But the point is that there is lots of things that you can prepare. And you can do yourself that huge favour, because we don't know what we look like, right? And you're turning up and you're there going, yes, I'm smiling. Maybe not. And you go, have you ever had it when you look back at photos and go, God damn it, if only somebody had just said, oh, this little tweak here. Yeah? That's what we're looking to avoid. Alright? You can turn up with a slideshow presentation. Do not fear about being too much. Take up the proverbial space as well as the literal. You have the right. You have the right to matter. Now, whose job is it anyway? There's little things wrong with all of these. Someone could have told me to yank the thing up at the back, cover my bra. Someone could have told me to brush my wig. Someone could have told me to lower my face. Somebody could have told me to turn my collar around the right way. But they didn't. But whose job is it to do that? Is it yours? Is it the photographer? The photographer's staring right at you. Couldn't they have just said it? But this is where we come into expectations management. Photographer's not necessarily going to know your series, your character, or your costume. Especially if you're turning up in some beautiful, grand, original design of decadence. You're never going to know what you're doing. And so, they're not going to be able to advise you in that way. They're not going to be able to say, oh, you need to unhook this, or is that meant to be, is the bow tie meant to be in the shirt or out of the shirt? So again, prepare. The best way to do this is actually to have a third person. Because this is from a Disney Bunny Girls group that I did at CosXpo, where we were taking solo shots. And we all trekked down in little groups so as not to overwhelm the photo area we were using. And I turn up, and Snow and the Evil Queen are there. And the photographer's like, next pose, and we all get 3. And then they're like, that immediate brain panic of, oh God, what do I do? I had a plan. Did I have a plan? I'm wearing a nice outfit, I thought I would be enough. I'm sure we've all experienced some elements of that feeling where you're like, I've done all the legwork, but then there's this final hurdle that I'm going to trip up on. And so I just went in, and I'm like, right, okay, I've done enough aerial photo shoots. Forever, people. And I ended up then being pose coach for literally every single girl. And they're like, oh my God, you're great. It's like, I was like, having my own hype squad. And I'm like, yeah. to look for. Oh, I need you to remind me to make sure that my horn's in the right place. I need you to make sure that my ear is in the right place. I need you to make sure that my underwear isn't sticking out of the costume. Allow people to help you. I promise, it's worth it. Less photoshopping. Communication. We kind of touched on this when we were talking about communicating with friends, communicating with your photographer, communicating with the cosplayers, communicating with who you are collaborating with. But I primarily said it from the perspective of you're the cosplayer turning up to the photo shoot. But what about your photographer and you're turning up? What should you be asking? Well, there are some good questions, I feel. Your mind is made over. But asking someone what their favourite part of their costume is. What's the main thing they want to capture? Let's say they haven't turned up with a slideshow presentation, although I fully expect you all to do that from now on. We're going to overwhelm the cosplay photography scene with how prepared we are. Big promise.
Please do that.
See, people are begging. But you can ask someone what their favourite part they want to capture. You can also ask, is there any part that you are feeling particularly like you don't really want to capture, that you're not particularly interested in seeing? Like, for example, when I did this long photo shoot in the pool, I was actually okay with doing like etchy style photos. And I knew the photographer I was working with, and I knew they had experience doing that. But we hadn't done it before, so I said to them, it is okay. If you capture a bit of booty, the tartar, it is okay. But if you're not comfortable with that, you can also say so. You can be like, I'm not really comfortable with things from the back, or I don't want anything that's like directly side on, I don't really like, whatever it is. Like, have that open dialogue. You don't have to just accept whatever someone takes of you. You don't have to just say yes to the first person that offers. You are allowed to be, discriminating is a terrible word, but you are allowed to choose. Another good question to ask is, what is your mobility? What is your range of motion? And that's not just for the cosplay, so it's like, oh, are you limited to standing poses, the sitting poses okay, kneeling? But it's also asking people like, what's your general mobility like? This might be a difficult question to answer for people who are not dancers. But it's something that you can head towards asking, and I'll show you why in a little bit. Couple of technical things. 2 little touches. I'm not going to teach a photographer how to take photos. I'm not going to talk to you about light balance, etc. But there are 2 things that are good tips, and they kind of go hand in hand. The first is the third line. There's a thing in photography and filmography about keeping the eyes at that 1/3 line into the photograph. It looks good, trust me. Not going to explain to you why, go to a film course. But partly because of this thing. I don't know if you can see the pink border. It's a little exaggerated, but it's something called lens distortion. And this is on every single lens. Have you ever had a photograph where you've kind of been at the edge, or someone's been at the edge, and it kind of looks like they've been stretched? Yeah? That is happening because of lens distortion. And lens distortion happens because the lens is curved over the camera, which means that it's slightly warped. If you imagine your image is a square, it's slightly being warped around the sphere. And so then if your face is like right near to the camera, it's going to make your face look wider. It's going to make your face look longer. The camera adds 10 pounds. This is why. Science. Now different lenses will do this to different degrees, but a way to avoid it is partly by enacting the third line, which is going to keep the top of your head away, but also not hitting at the edges. Imagine there's a bleed area if you do printing. An area that's going to get cut off, an area that no person or object of importance should be in. You can always crop the photo down later. Do yourself the favour. Poses. Now, this is a difficult topic to cover in an hour because, looking around looking at all the costumes in the room, there are numerous different ways of posing with numerous different costumes. But some basics. Standing straight on is very boring, and it only really works in a few finite scenarios. Like one, for example, was when I did design a dress area and I was emulating the artwork. Shows off the dress. Great. I'm also standing on a rock. I'm not actually that tall. But you can make things slightly more interesting by turning to the thirds. You'll also come across this advice whenever you're drawing characters for character work. Think about angles, think about shapes, think about lines. This is just something you develop an eye for, and like with anything, with practice. You can look up posing guides, you can look through photography magazines, you can look through editorial magazines, you can look through always magazines, I'm old. But yeah, you can use Google, the internet. But you can find these references where you can practice. And as I said earlier, practice in front of a mirror, practice in front of your camera. Get to know your body. What does it do? Right? Like, do you have like particularly closed shoulders when you're doing this a lot? Or do you have particularly open shoulders? This is important. Things like when we're talking about lines, extension, pretty. But this is where we start talking about mobility range. I did say I did gymnastics. But like breaking up the shape, like so it was like the child there, it's like I could stand straight on, or I could stand slightly cocked. Just like things to make it slightly more interesting. Play to your strengths, whatever those are. Apparently turning upside down in a gazebo. But this is partly like using your outfit to its best advantage. You've got a swooshy skirt, swoosh. Go forth, be dynamic, my beautiful children. Feel free to experiment with stuff. Like, you might do stuff where you go, it seemed like a good idea at the time, now it just looks like I'm holding a metal tit. It's a fencing épée, but now it's basically a metal portobello mushroom. Feel free to experiment. But here's some tips that you can action that I 100% did not take out on the green earlier today. Posture. A lot of us, desk jobs or sitting at sewing machines, our shoulders do this. And the other thing about human beings is we relax, especially when we're not doing anything. So we go, ugh. This is not a very nice photograph. Now, as much as I know that the idea of doing a vertical sit-up is nobody's cup of tea, when you are taking a photograph, think about that thread pulling all the way through you to the top. Alright? Do what the ballerinas do. Hand in an L shape, stick it under your chin. This, come on, hands up. Right. For whom does that feel very weird? Is your neck going, I don't stand at attention. What the hell are you making me do this for? This is where your head is supposed to be sitting. It's not most of the time, is it? We're doing this. Phones. TikTok. Fun. But we're training our bodies to basically just be like this all of the time. And so when we come to do cosplay, like, I'm just going to relax into this pose. We're really pulling up through, chin up, shoulders back, straight through the back, and beautiful. Now this. Also, be wary of what shapes you are making. I know that we're constantly being told to not take up space in the world, but getting into like compressed shapes, this is nobody's cup of tea. This does nobody anything, it's irregardless of what body you're in. So another favour you can do yourself is elongation shapes. Alright, so we go from here's one sitting pose, here's another sitting pose. Which one do we like better? If anybody says that one, I'll just leave you out the door. Because you will be back. So these are things that you can be thinking about when you are coming to do your pose. If you're there like just sitting and your hands next to your side, consider moving out to the side. We create a nice triangle shape. We create space. We create dynamic. Don't crowd your limbs over your body, because then that covers everything up. So we're going to be like, oh, voila, or voila, we are beautiful, we are stunning. Tell yourself that. And if you can't tell yourself that, I will send you a recording of me going, you are beautiful, you are stunning. Look it. Working with groups. you're on your lonesome. And when you're cosplaying by yourself, you have this a ginormous advantage of there being nobody else in the frame. I want to do an experiment at some point, and I'm sure the results will shock you, where I go around to people with pictures of people, knowing full well what their sizes and measurements are, and go, what size do you think this person is? I mean, basic question, I'm aware. But I have a sneaking suspicion that if I asked you to tell me what size you think I am, only a few of you would be right. And that's not because like female presenting sizing is a bloody joke. And that's not because I'll be a different size here to here to here in fashion sizing. That is because your eye is trained to look at things in proportion to everything else around it. So if you stand me next to somebody who's 4 foot nothing, I look like a giantess. I mean, I'm 5'7", I'm slightly above average, but I'm not a giantess. Like, I'm not 6 foot. But there's a relativity here. And I'm sure we've all been in that position where we're cosplaying with someone and we're like, yeah, you're going to make me look bad. They're not going to mean to. They're not going to mean to. But that voice is there in your head. And so we can do little things about that. Like, so this is me and my friend Kai, where my head is slightly bigger than Kai's head. We do a lot of couple cosplays. And I always feel a bit awkward because obviously in anime we're expected to be the dainty young thing with, Prince Beautiful over it. And I don't feel that way sometimes. Like, for example, in this one, my head is actually closer to the camera than Kai's head. And so one way that you can kind of counteract that is standing behind them. Now that's not me saying go to the back of the photo in every group shot. But I'm saying that if you're going to be framing a photo like that, there are little techniques that you can do just to balance it out. Balancing it out for the observer's eye. Right? Some other things, especially when we've got big groups. Putting everybody in the same pose is an exceedingly dangerous maneuver for people who have a lack of body confidence. Because it makes it easy for, as we've just been talking about, for the eye to compare them. Now, we did this on purpose because we were replicating the artwork. And I think we all look fucking fabulous. Honestly, I worked 4 months on those 10 costumes, and they are a beautiful group of people. Yes, there's a reason they all look so good together. There's a reason it looks like a fit. But, for example, me and Mars over here, we're basically doing the same pose. And it's making it very easy for your eye to go, well, I can see where that skirt's sitting, I can see where that bow's sitting. Which is unfair if you've got people who are conscious in that way. So if you're like working with a group, you can probably see it as a photographer. There's usually body language cues. We can learn to read those, and we can do something about that. But one of the things that we can do is mixing it up. Play with depth, put people in different poses. Make sure that they're not all in matching poses, because then the eye will bounce between them, and it will be less comparative. It's a kinder way to pose groups. If that's what the group wants to do, if that, again, communication. Because if they're looking to replicate a very specific artwork, then go for it, do the thing. But then you can also let them do that and then be like, oh, but I have some advice. Lovely close-up of Emily there.
Sorry.
It's okay, you're beautiful, stay. But there are little things that you can do, and like you can tell people, you can go, oh, Mercury, darling, your pose is getting a little bit small, maybe straighten one leg, mix it up a little. You can give them little pointers. Post-production and editing. Now this is the before, this is the after. We play a fun game of spot the difference while I'm talking. You can do it in your head, so you don't need to shout. Do not edit someone's body without their express consent. Now I have done little things, like I've fixed people's hand and arm positions. I've made people stand in the proper stance rather than something like this. Obviously, people follow directions. To be fair, shooting 10 people and expecting them all to do the same thing on cue, very difficult. This is why there's like 5 photos and I have grafted bits from them. It's like surgery, but fantastic. But the point is that I haven't changed their bodies. I haven't made anything thinner, I haven't made anything more shapely, I haven't made anything more defined, unless they've asked me to. Unless they have asked me to. And that is their prerogative and not for me to judge. And if they want me to do that, I'll do it for them. But I had someone once where I had a photo, part of a group shoot, and I was stood up against something straight. And the edit came back, and the bottom, that straight column was coming down, and then it had clearly taken LSD. Someone had used the liquefy tool on my leg. And I was mortified. I was absolutely humiliated because I thought, oh God, nobody else is going to look at this. None of the rest of the group are going to look at this. I'm looking at this because I have trained myself to look at me with the most critical eye imaginable. I will beat everyone to the punchline. I will criticise myself first so that it doesn't hurt when they do it. So I did that to myself, and I was sitting there panicking, thinking, oh God, they've already started putting the photo up. People are going to think that I've done this to myself. Because they are, right? They're going to think, oh, you know, that one has clearly tried to do something. You're trying to hide something. It's not hiding anything, sweetheart. Right? You know the attitude that I'm talking about. And so I had to go to the photographer and say, look, can you just undo whatever you did? This is making me very uncomfortable. So don't edit people's bodies without their consent. Things are probably bad enough without even that. And even if like the person that's coming across is really body confident in the moment, you do not know behind closed doors. Because I front like this and no tomorrow. And this morning I was sat crying in my car going, I don't want to go in. I don't want to do this panel. I don't want to pick a target on me and go, hey look, I'm fat, everybody talk about it. But I'm here anyway. Right, yeah, then we should just call it like a crying in the car club. Support group, see me after, but we got to like her. Your car or mine, baby. And we'll just use everybody's car, we'll be the cool kids. We'll like turn up to an abandoned car park at night, turn our headlights on with our red cups. Oh my God, this is turning into a cheesy American teen movie. Advocate for yourself. We've talked about this a lot. And I hope I have, in some ways, armed you with tools that you can use to do that. Whether it's giving yourself a pep talk, whether or not it's watching this video back and hearing me whisper, you're good enough, do the thing, I love you. Or whether it's turning up to the shoot with your slideshow presentation. But talk about it. Talk about how you're feeling. And I mean that, like, when you're feeling great, talk about it. When you're feeling bad, talk about it. Whether it's just with your friends, whether it's with the people you're working with. You have the right. You have the right to express your opinions. Again, even if it makes the people around you uncomfortable. It is not on you to bear that emotional burden alone. I know the world is telling you that it is, but it's not. You are not at fault, you matter, and you are lovely. When you look at these two photos, one of them is from CatsuCon, which was in February. One of them was 10 years ago. Slightly ago, but we'll pretend it's only 10. I'm not old, shut up. Now, I wonder what your eye is looking at. I wonder what you've noticed. The prompt is probably a bad idea, but I didn't want to risk fancy animation. I didn't know what tech situation I was walking into. Thank you, love you, shush now, thank you. Wait till I'm done, love you. But at one point in my life, I would have looked at the change in my waistline. I'd have looked at the change in my thigh shape, depth of my arms, whatever. These days I look at my face. Am I smiling? Am I happy? Was I happy? Because everything else does not matter. If you were unhappy, nothing else matters. You were unhappy, and that is valid, that is okay. keep the memory just for the sake of making yourself feel bad. You can take other photos, you can do it again. No one's judging you, no one's going to mark your homework and go, well, that's it, tough tits. Do it again. But if you're happy, nothing else matters. Because that's the most important thing here. I know we like crafting, and I know we like turning up in a nice outfit, and I know we all love the serotonin boost of someone coming out to me and going, "Yo, that's the best thing of my life." Exactly like that. I expect that level from all of you. Do the thing. But smile when you are happy. And if you're not happy, communicate. Whether it's, the photographer's not just judging you, you're just not feeling it, whatever it is, communicate. It's okay. You don't have to be on brand every day. It's exhausting. Nobody has the time or enough pills. And that is the sum total of my talk. I hope I have earned pleasure of your time. And if you have any questions, what is the time? Oh! Wow, I managed to catch us all up! Yes! I'm going to clear the stage for the benefit of whoever is presenting after me, but I will be heading out the corridor, so as again, if you want to chatter whilst another presentation is happening, if you would like to chat, you're more than welcome to. If you would like to follow my socials, they have been probably blocked by my body, but they are in fact there. They're also on the CosXpo website. But thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed.